Hey, I wanted to just give this video a little bit of an intro. This was a really fun discussion that just sort of organically evolved. We started talking about cutting and it evolved into baseball. But I do want to give you a little heads up at the end of this. I also put a little snippet of a video that actually shows the physical shape of the thorax during a throw. So actually a cross section of the thorax, which was kind of a neat little thing that we just threw on at the end. So make sure you watch it all the way through if you would. And we certainly use a lot of terminology that we use clinically, especially at IFAST. And if there's any confusion with any of those terms, just post me a question. I'll try to answer those, and then we'll also roll it over into the weekly Q&A, which would be also of value to you as well. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this conversation. It was a fun one and a great Padawan lesson. And yes, it was on Halloween, unfortunately, and so you'll see why I'm shaking my head a little bit. All right, man.
Cool.
Let me just state something first for the record, is that you don't dress this way all the time. Even though this is a Padawan lesson, like, you don't have to dress
Even
like
though
a
I
Padawan.
want to dress like this.
Yeah,
Every
I
day.
know. I'm very, very concerned for your mental well-being, but
It's Halloween. It's acceptable.
it is Halloween, so okay. Go ahead.
Cool.
Let's talk.
All right. So as we're going into a cut,
Okay, give me like a frame of reference.
left foot.
Left
cut.
foot going in.
So
Okay.
I'm going into
Yep.
the left side.
Yep.
So as I'm going through the air, about to plant,
Yeah, you're positioning.
my right side is going to be more so in IR and propulsion to push me over to this left side still.
Right, you're in a later phase of propulsion and probably in that IR element.
And the left foot is still going to be in ER as it's traveling
Yes.
through the air, right?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
So then as you plant, you're still going to be in early propulsion, but you're quickly transitioning into mid-propulsion, correct?
Right, so you have to, and again, when we talk about these phases as if the world is in slow motion, right? But these are like that quick. So so when you think about the placement of the foot, okay, so typically, because you're in ER, you're going to have like a toe dominant contact like you're going to lead with the toe basically, but the heel is going to follow pretty darn quick, because when you think about that, and we've talked about this before, is that if I don't get the medial calcaneus to the ground quickly, I sprain my ankle. And that's how these ankle sprains occur, is that people are landing not in a propulsive position, they're landing in a position that is biased towards the load phase, and they don't have true propulsive capabilities.
Right.
So when you land on somebody's foot in basketball, you're typically landing in supination, thus the inversion sprain. But the reason that it sprains is because you're getting fixed into a position of inhalation on landing when you should be in an exhaled, moving towards IR position.
Right.
So again, we're moving towards these internally rotated propulsive positions. That's what's protective, that's what's force producing, and again, you have to be able to acquire that position for everything to work well.
So now, since I'm going to be talking about the thorax tomorrow for my in-service, I wanted to gear this conversation a little bit more towards what's happening up top, right?
Cool with that.
So as I'm coming into early propulsion, right, I'm going to have a predominantly yielding contraction on the back to try and prevent all of that force from continuing to rotate me forward.
So again, that let's distinguish this. It is a turn, therefore we have to have this posterior expansion, eccentric orientation. Yeah, otherwise you cannot turn.
So
another reason why people fail in a cut position is because they don't have this posterior expansion, and it is moving towards the yielding. That's the thing that you have to understand. As I'm placing the foot, I am actually concentric on that posterior side.
Right.
But as I am moving into my propulsive position on my foot, I am yielding on that posterior side to allow that expansion to occur, to allow it to be a turn versus getting shoved straight over the hip.
Right.
I have to be able to accept that turn.
So now what I've been seeing people do is as they get into a cut, they'll almost throw this, their cutting side arm back and throw their scap back. So I see that as like the scap is now being placed on the backside to aid in that yielding contraction.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So
So let me ask you that. Is that an effective strategy? Is that the most effective strategy? It'll work, but why do they do that?
because they don't have the capacity to hold it back any other way.
Right, so if I can't achieve a yielding posterior thorax on the cut side,
Mm-hmm.
what I have to do is I have to literally reorient the thorax. Hang on, but see, that's not what they're doing. They're not closing this side, they're keeping that side open. So they create a break by expanding that cut side rib cage forward, and it creates a basically an airbag, right? So they inflate the left anterior chest wall, and it creates a break so they can't bend over that side.
So
It still works as a strategy, but it's literally it's almost like if you were moving forward
mm-hmm.
and created so you're creating a deceleration by
By-
turning it, like opening your front side,
Opening,
when
falling,
literally it would be
turning.
so much quicker if you could expand.
Like stay back here, expand the back, but I mean we're still also seeing people like still rotating and bringing the scap back.
Right,
into
because they
retraction.
can't yield, so they're not yielding on the back side. There has to be a yield on this side, and there will be an expansion here. It's just like which is predominant. So they're becoming more and more concentric on the posterior side, which means I have to become more yielding eccentric on the anterior side.
So you'd rather not see this arm in this.
It's going to go
Shoulder
that
be
they're
thrown
going to
back
turn.
that
They're
way.
going to turn that way. But the question is how are they turning that way?
And-
It's like, are they able to dampen the forces, or are they literally they twist themselves so severely that they're literally going the wrong direction?
Okay. Well, so then this brings us into my question about throwing too, where I see they're coming back into early propulsion, but then they're also doing the same thing with their cocking arm and bringing it back to aid in that yielding contraction in the back. But we kind of want that though with pitching, right? Because we want them to get into this cocking phase at their shoulder and bringing their shoulder
Right,
back.
but do I want a concentric overcoming right posterior thorax in that case?
Probably not,
No, I don't.
because you'll see the same.
Well, you're gonna. So what they'll do is that when they go into cocking phase, they'll throw their left elbow up.
Like way up.
Yeah.
Like-
So it'll literally tilt. It'll tilt them up
The costume is
because
predominant.
they need something to hold them back. Because they don't have a yielding capability on the right posterior hip or the right posterior rib cage when they're in cocking phase. Okay.
Forward.
Right.
Okay.
They'll throw their left elbow up, and again, they create the same thing that we were just seeing with a cut. But the problem is it stops the turn, right?
Right.
So you get a bilateral ER orientation that tips me straight back, and so now they're traditionally extended. Instead of creating a sequential turn, which creates a tremendous amount of arm velocity in a protected position, they now have to create arm velocity through an extended thorax, which puts load on the elbow.
Okay.
Do you see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I do.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of. Let me go back to.
And just to clarify, since this is a recording, is that we have to think of these things in a graded. It's not an absolute either or, right? We have these transitions that have to occur, right? So when we talk about, you could still be concentrically oriented, which is a shortened position of the musculature, but yielding, giving way, which has a dampening effect, right? Which allows me an element of control, right? So just because it's yielding doesn't mean that it's a give way. It's just it's a dampening or absorption of the forces, right? Okay, I just want to clarify that.
Yeah.
Because again, some of these things get confusing on video.
So then, they're in. I'm at my wind up.
Mm-hmm.
On this rear side, I'm in early, but going towards mid. Correct.
Yeah.
So
You enter into it. So as a pitcher shifts his weight over his stance leg
right.
before he kicks, it's just like literally walking into a space. So I put my foot down. I am in an early propulsive phase, and I move towards that middle propulsive element, right? Where I have to literally change, I'm going to change direction, I'm going to go towards home plate. So where I'm bringing my weight over my foot, which is, if I'm a right-handed pitcher, say I'm actually moving towards third base, and then I reorient and I push towards home. You see it? Like if you stepped in, right? And you have to exaggerate to see it, but that's literally what's happening. So you're early propulsive to mid propulsive, then you reorient, change direction. But I have to have a little bit of that yielding element on the right posterior for a right-handed pitcher. Otherwise, I have to fall out of my right side. And, exactly, and then timing's off. I gotta create a big bag of air to create the delay to hold me back, because I gotta get my arm back. I need time.
But I see the right arm coming back to aid in that yielding contraction, though. As in, like, the scapula is coming back and almost like holding stuff back from coming too far, because you still need to turn over to the left side.
Okay, but if I don't have any of that posterior expansion that I need, now I have a scap that is already upwardly rotating.
Right.
Too soon.
Already pushing you over.
It's already, so again, I have to think about what position that I'm going to be in, right? It's not just about capturing the position, because if the scapula is trying to upwardly rotate too soon, then I can't even ER. Right? If I don't have the yielding aspect on the right posterior rib cage, the scapula doesn't start from a useful position. It is already tilting backwards. It's already compressing the thorax, and it's already trying. So again, if I start with a compressed thorax, well, yeah, I can cock the ball back really, really well. In fact, the layback increases. But how am I getting it there? That's the concern, right? And then, again, that concentric overcoming aspect will push me forward towards home plate too soon. Then I have to put the brakes on. How do you put the brakes on? Lift your left elbow, expand the left rib cage, and again, it keeps me back.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's not optimal from a sequential turning standpoint, because the goal is to sequentially turn everything in succession, so that the last thing that stays back is the ball, and then that comes through as a whip. If I have to put the brakes on, if I have to throw up the rib cage with an expansive strategy to hold me back, I don't get the sequential turn. It comes through as an extension, and that's where you see the inverted, elbow position, where I'm bilaterally pronated at the wrong time. Right. And then again, the timing is off, and then that creates a tremendous amount of load on the elbow as you try to pull the ball through.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Because it's the same strategy as the cutting. I mean, we have to use the same strategy. It would make sense. I mean, it's all turns anyway.
But it's and I still see a difference between, like, biomechanically, yes, everything is happening the same way. It's just the timing between throwing and cutting is, like, drastically different. Just because you need to delay that
I'll give
right propulsion and turning to the left much longer than
right.
cut.
Well, because again, the turnaround on a cut, we want it to be as fast as possible, where there is an element of rhythm and timing associated with the throw, so you do get the rotational sequence from the ground up.
Because you'll still see that's a sequential rotation in a cut. It's just happening much quicker and in a smaller window, as opposed to throwing.
Yeah. But okay. So what's the difference between the cut and the throw? Is that the throw continues forward over the leg, whereas the cut is I go into it and I literally have to go back out in the opposite direction, which means that the forces are going to be a little bit faster. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Do we have anything else here on this aspect?
Yeah, probably. I'm just going through my notes.
Just checking my time here.
As you push off, the legs and pelvis go further into mid-propulsion and start to turn the lower body to the lead side. So you're going here. The scap of the throwing side is also going to start coming back further to prevent more air going into dorsal rostral, and start pushing it forward. start turning towards the lead leg. So what I was seeing is essentially I'm going into my propulsive phase, so there's more of a yielding contraction on the back, and that's also where I'm seeing max cocking in a lot of throwing mechanics.
Correct.
I think that's what I'm referring to as far as the scap being used as part of the yielding aspect.
Okay.
And it's also beneficial for the throw because it's aiding in the layback position.
Okay, now, so let's take this, let's say that we're optimally positioned.
Right.
I do want the scapula to go back because that creates a physical block
Yeah.
and it pushes the air forward, which is where I want to go. The question is like, how much of that air is going forward? You see the difference?
Yeah.
So if I totally close it off, I get too much air in the front, now I'm extended.
Right.
If I have a yielding aspect of it and the scapula goes back, now I push the optimal amount of air forward, which provides me a direction towards home plate and still allows me to turn.
So
The question is how much of each?
So optimally, I'd be achieving maximum layback right at the transition between a yielding contraction on the back going into an overcoming contraction on the back, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean that was what we consider optimal anyway, right? It's like I need that expansion followed by the compression, which would be yield versus. And again, I'm not changing the orientation. So when we talk about orientation, we're talking about concentric versus eccentric. What I am changing is, am I yielding?
Right.
So it's a giving way.
Yeah, what's the direction?
Right. But I'm not letting it go, because if I let it go, I go back towards second base.
Right.
Right, which is what I don't want to do.
Right.
So I have to maintain the orientation. That's why orientation is such a big deal. And then the overcoming versus yielding tells me where I'm grading this, and it helps me create a direction.
Okay.
That's why I think that's a much more powerful terminology. It becomes more useful.
So this was something I was a little confused about. This glove side is going to be in pronation as I continue through with my propulsion phase. Is that allowing more of this pump handle to come up because that's an iron position, and so that's
So it's a break. It's a break, but it's a rotational. It's not just a pure expansion. Again, it's the same thing we were talking about before. It's like if I get too much air forward, I have to lean back to stay back. But again, I lose my ability to sequentially turn. So if I pronate, right, now I'm driving the turn from distal to proximal. That keeps me back, but it still allows the expansion to occur in the right place under the right circumstance.
Right. So with your inverted W's, that's almost like too much of a brake because you have too much of a gas pedal coming from the other side, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then I screw up the timing, right? So again, I lose my sequential turn and it becomes this. Right? It's just, it's that kind of a whip through. Right? Because it's the only way that I'll hold myself. Again, I'm just trying to figure out ways to hold myself back. Right?
But so then we're seeing they're coming into supination on the glove side before they're even finishing with max propulsion on this back side, though.
Yeah, but again, it's a sequence.
It's not going to happen at the same time.
It is happening at the same time, but at relative velocity, like the relative rate would be slightly different. It's again, this is where we talk about timing and rhythms and stuff like that. You know, and some guys are just better at it than others, and that's what makes them great. And it's going to change with fatigue too, by the way.
Right.
Always. It always changes with fatigue. But that's how you know when to shut somebody down. When you start to see a significant alteration. It's just a matter of knowing the picture well enough that you see the KPI
Each one.
absolutely. And maybe for one guy it's a velocity drop off. Maybe for another guy it's his drag mark. Maybe for another guy it's his foot position when he hits the ground. Like is he stepping towards third base or is he stepping towards home? It's like you just start to see those things, and it's just like okay. You know. And I think they try to do that. That's one of the elements of a pitch count, right? But to randomly throw out a pitch count and say, oh, we need to stop you at this many pitches, that's iffy.
Right.
I think it's iffy. Unless you
create a norm.
Yeah, and it's like maybe you've tracked a guy long enough that you can sort of bias him like it's like a 90 plus or minus this many pitches or whatever, right? It's like, but again, tracking over time, it's like, okay, how many pitches did he throw over 95? How many pitches did he throw at 91 and 93? So all of those things are probably factors that,
Sure.
and again, I don't follow it enough to know how particular
exactly.
they are with, yeah. I mean, I'm sure they can. I'm sure they can track all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, but you try to put that into like a formula and then vomit it out every pitch. It's like every pitch is additive, and then you say, well, we would expect the accumulated fatigue to be this, and I would expect to see this change in this throwing motion over time if you have enough data. I bet you could do that to a certain degree, you know?
Enough predictive.
Probably not. Probabilities.
Right.
I wouldn't say prediction because, you know, who knows?
Yeah, but I mean, like, there's an 80% chance.
Yeah,
X number of throws that.
Yeah.
this
But I would
would
need
start
you'd
to-
need a tremendous amount of data.
Right.
But you could literally add it every pitch. You know, with the way they can track things now. It'd be
Yeah,
kind of
it'd be
cool to
like-
actually do that.
Up 1% of this happening, up 3% of that happening, kind of thing.
It'd be
Yeah.
kind of scary, actually, if you could really pull that one off.
Yeah, I wasn't very good at statistics in school, so that's okay.
My statistics TA did not speak English.
Oh, that's an issue.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
It was a tough day.
One day of tutoring. And then,
Tuesdays were just tough because.
I'm trying to put max proportion. So this is something that I was going over too with pitching, where you're pushing off that back foot, and you're trying to get. I'm trying to determine where is max propulsion taking place with that rear foot.
I can tell you where it is. I just don't know when it would be.
What do you mean where it is?
Well, it would be max pronation.
Right.
So wherever that point occurs.
But I'm trying to time it with like the rest of the sequence that should be happening in the pitch. So would it be happening when I'm at max pronation on this glove side? Because that's still keeping me back, and then as soon as I'm going into supination on this glove side, that's
yeah,
when
and then
this
you
lead
literally
line needs
release
to start.
So think about so this makes sure I stay back so I can push forward. This is a push backwards into the back foot.
Right.
So it stands to reason that at max pronation of my glove side, I should hit max pronation of the push foot.
But so it's peak pronation on that backside, but it's not the end of it.
No, it's not. It's not end propulsion
Right.
by any stretch of the imagination.
But that's how much that you would want. That's at the point where you would want max propulsion coming from that backside.
Yeah, it's like hold it back, 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 release it. Yeah,
Gotcha.
absolutely.
So you almost want to delay this glove side as much as possible. Or
No, because then you dissipate too much force. Again, this is about optimization. It's not about like the more you hold it back, you take away the dynamics of it, right? That would imply that okay, stand in single leg stance as long as possible, right? It does not make you a better pitcher nor add to velocity.
Gotcha.
Right? I have to consider, okay, so I have mass times velocity, so I have momentums that are there, right, that I have to account for. I have internal forces that I have to overcome. So think about this. So I want my guts moving because it accelerates in the correct direction.
Right.
So if I held position too long, there's no movement. So now I don't take advantage of the force, the internal forces.
Right.
People don't recognize that stuff. They're looking at like legs and muscles and stuff like that. It's like I got a bag of water that I'm swishing around inside that can actually help me turn or slow me down.
Right.
And that's a big part of this too. So we're talking about this external positioning and relationships, when the reality is like I have to orient my guts so they spin in the right direction, so I take advantage of the acceleration.
So I'm timing max propulsion with that rear foot, pronation with glove side, and then peak pronation glove side should also coincide with peak layback on the throwing side. And then I'm releasing that at the right point to essentially launch the guts forward and spin them around.
Right, so the guts have to finish their spin in this direction. I start towards home plate. They're held back a little bit, and then they accelerate and they pull everything else through.
So I'm probably seeing supination at this glove side as the guts are coming through, essentially.
It would probably lead it by just the slightest bit of time, because I need to create
space.
I need to create the external, and then it would accelerate through, right? It would catch up, because there's always a delay, right? There's always a delay of the guts.
Right.
So if I turn this way, the guts actually went the other way first. Now they come back with me. Then I turn it towards home plate, and then the guts pull through. So if this represents me pushing myself back, the guts are probably still going back. Then I initiate the supination to move towards home plate, right? And then they're still going back, and then if I can delay that, which is part of the delay that we're talking about on the back side,
Right.
so I have the yielding aspect of it. Why would I yield? Because the guts are hitting the back right side,
Yeah.
right? I need something to absorb that.
Yeah, you can't push them forward before there's
I
room
have to,
for
I,
them on
I
the
have to
other side
gently
go.
catch them just enough and then throw them back in the other direction.
Yeah.
It's just like catching a medicine ball off the wall. What do you think the medicine ball off the wall is teaching you to do?
Catch your guts.
To catch your guts. Exactly right. Right? So you get the rhythm and the timing. Because if I don't, so if I catch it and I don't dampen it all, there's that jolt. Right? That doesn't allow me to throw back any quicker. So as I catch it, and everybody would say that, oh, you're using strict shortening cycle. And I would say, yes, but
You're using
But
it to catch
if you forget about the internal forces that you have to control and manage and utilize, I think you're really undercutting the beauty of this whole thing.
Okay.
Because those forces are fabulous. Because if you don't have those, nothing good happens. Because they help you balance, they help you dampen forces, they help you produce forces. I mean, that's what we spend the first year of our life learning how to move around, are the guts and a giant melon, right? Which is the same thing, really, when you think about it.
Okay.
Which is, it makes it infinitely cooler, in my opinion, when you start looking at all of this stuff that interacts, you know. But that's why you're a big bag of water.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah.
So we're looking down on the thorax of a right-handed pitcher. This is the anterior, this is the posterior, this is the right side, this is the left side. These are the airflow mechanics for a right-handed throw. Go ahead. Do it one more time. So right-handed throw.